I have great pleasure in presenting to you Professor Dr. Bala Bhaskar from Bellary, India. He is working in the Department of Anesthesiology at WIMS, Bellary. He is currently the chairman of the academic committee and he is also the past president of the Indian Society of Anesthesiologists National. He was the editor-in-chief of the Indian Journal of Anesthesia from 2013 to 16. He is a member of Publications Committee of the World Federation of Society of Anesthesiologists. Presenting to you Professor Dr. Bala Bhaskar.
Good afternoon, and I thank the organizing committee for having invited me to talk about this topic, a very contemporary topic in the current Indian context. Why do you want generally the patients to be fasting in a perioperative period? It's very obvious that because we talk about the risk of regurgitation and pulmonary aspiration of gastric contents. And this is especially so if the patient is under anesthesia or some deep sedation. And we have also been told about certain critical volumes like more than 25 ml and a pH of less than 2.5 being associated with significant risk to the body with risk of respiratory failure whenever there is aspiration. And this was based upon a publication by Roberts and Shirley in 1974. And very strange but true it is that they conducted this research on a single rhesus monkey, and the results they extrapolated to humans. There was no actual regurgitation and aspiration. They instilled the right main bronchus with 0.4 ml of acid. And subsequently, of course, we can't and we don't have the human trials because it is unethical to subject the patients to such trials. And we are also in the know about the Mendelssohn syndrome, who discussed about the various causes related to the aspiration of gastric contents into the lungs. But one problem there was he included multiple types of cases, many different types of general anesthesia, different types of surgeries, and always there was a lot of use of ether in those days. So, but of course, he did warn us about the risks. And the risks are always there in the perioperative period. Definitely, there are a lot of patient factors which are physiological, and again, we have got anesthetic factors. But they can also be precipitation related to the medical condition and physical condition of the patient. All of them could cause a delay in gastric emptying. They can reduce the barrier pressure, and there could be suppression of protective reflexes, as I told you already. So when we decide to fast the patient, broadly speaking, how long should they be fasting? Should they be fasting totally for 24 hours or 48 hours? Something like that. But one definition is we should allow for a minimum duration which is necessary to minimize the risk of regurgitation and aspiration. That is the most important. This with respect to the time. And what type of food and what type of drink can be taken and for how long it can be taken is another one which we are already discussing. So there have been guidelines. For example, this table very beautifully shows the list from 1847. Many individual anesthesiologists and specialists, they did talk about this. And in 1976, Canadian Anesthetic Society also discussed about the guidelines related to the preoperative fasting. But these were followed by more specific and research guidelines. The first one was ASA in 1999. Then we had the Scandinavian Society, then we got the ASA update and European Society and all. But we have the ISA guideline in 2020, which is very special. Very special means because we are mainly talking about the diet in Indian conditions. For example, if you look at the Western advice, they talk about these different food items which are shown here. But these are very much aligned to us. We don't use, at least 90% of the population doesn't consume these type of food items. And hence we decided when we conducted this guidelines work, we enrolled the services of a qualified nutritionist. We also conducted a nationwide survey, identified regularly consumed foods from different parts of India. So how long to fast, which food and which drink, of course, this have to be modified as per the Indian conditions. Yes, we talk about roti, we talk about chapati, we talk about rice, we talk about idli, vada, those and other things. Of course, Parle-G is always it is never alien. Many of us still use it, and our patients use it pre-operative. So this is the table of the various food items which are being consumed in different parts of India, and you have made a list based upon evidences, and there are many things which are also missing, mainly because we don't have an evidence, we have not added. So these are typical volumes for adults are also given in this table. So this one advantage is this can also be ready reckoner, and patients can also see which food items can be taken in the perioperative period. They need not disturb us also or the perioperative management. So what if we follow this guideline strictly, and can we assure that the patient's stomach is empty? So we should know what is an empty stomach and what is a full stomach. There are definitions. A full stomach is presence of solid content or a state of increased volume of liquid gastric contents above the baseline volumes. And a baseline volume is defined as the volume of gastric content after an adult fast overnight. And empty stomach is a state when the gastric contents reach the baseline volume after the intake of the food items. Is it nothing, or it should be 1 ml per kg or 1.5 ml per kg? Do we have a measurement? We go beyond surely. This is never possible. 0 ml is never possible because saliva is continuously secreted. Gastric secretions are always safe. So, in fact, one of the studies showed in nearly 40 to 80% of the patients, despite adequate fasting, gastric volumes are more than 25 ml. Okay. And in fact, the modern studies, when we talk about evidences, they have used various options and techniques to measure the gastric volumes and the emptying time. The gold standard is scintigraphy using radio-labeled meals, but there have been many other techniques which have also been followed. The most recent one would be gastric ultrasound, which is very practical. I will touch upon it later in terms of evidences further. So here what is basically done is the patient's gastric volume is assessed, content is assessed, and motility also based upon the cross-sectional area of the antrum, which is in the form of a formula, physics formula, which you can see there. And this is rapidly accumulating. The evidences here are rapidly accumulating. And that's the reason we say that it can be used, may be used. We are not giving a strong recommendation because of economic considerations and medical legal considerations in India, that it may be used as a bedside tool for assessing the quantity and quality of gastric contents in the preoperative period. Coming back to the basics, when we talk about water and clear fluids, we have gone through multiple evidences and publications, purely talking in terms of volumes. For example, 20 studies were dealing with clear fluids. They found no regurgitation aspiration. 8 studies were talking about water alone. They had administered 100 to 500 ml of water till 2 hours before. Then there was a meta-analysis of traditional fasting versus 2 hours of fasting for water. Then another meta-analysis we conducted of traditional fasting versus 2 hours for other clear liquids. They found that there were comparable gastric volumes at 2 hours also as compared to traditional fasting for both water and clear liquids. And with respect to pH considerations, if you look at the second row, we conducted a meta-analysis of 4 studies on traditional fasting versus 2 hours of water. It was found that there was higher pH with 2 hours, and 5 studies on fasting traditionally versus 2 hours for other clear liquids. There was higher pH with 2 hours. And in a network meta-analysis, strangely and paradoxically, we found that clear liquids pH was higher than the pH associated with water intake. Then with respect to volume of clear liquid and water, there were at least 2 major studies which were taken into considerations. It was found that volumes of even up to 500 ml, from 20 to 500 ml, different volumes were used. They were clearly removed from the stomach. So gastric emptying was very efficient. So this was the odds ratio with respect to the clear fluids and water and traditional fasting, and with respect to the pH also, strongly in favor of delaying the fasting for as late as 2 hours before procedure. There is important physiology here. In solid foods, they do have a biphasic elimination from the stomach because they have to break down and they have to mix up and all. But whereas with clear liquids and water, it is there is no lag. So there is a rapid fall in the volume and the content in the stomach, and at half an hour, almost 80% is gone, and by 1 hour, almost everything is gone. So this is a basis for us advising nil per oral to be continued, to be stopped only at 2 hours before for clear liquids. So broadly, this is the recommendations which is given, and the volume may be restricted to less than 450 ml in adults. So with respect to non-clear liquids, we stick to the basic guideline from other sources. We found the same evidences. It is 4 hours, and for light meals it is 6 hours. And for heavy meals, we have at least 2 important evidences which are available. One, prospective descriptive study of 200 patients. The previous one was a retrospective study. Both of them are very importantly are ultrasound-based studies, very solid evidences. But they found that despite maximal fasting, many patients had significant high volume of visceral gastric content. And they also found that many of them had consumed heavy meals, and it took more than 13 to 14 hours for them to empty. So our summary of recommendations overall is based upon this. We have erred on the side of caution. For heavy meals, like we talk about heavy fatty meals and all as per the ASA, it is 10 hours. So the ASA says more than 8 hours. We are clear here that it should be 10 hours. And do we administer anti-aspiration prophylaxis? Of course, we want the gastric volume to come down, the pH to improve. There are the standard drugs which have been using regularly. There are evidences also which have been published with respect to gastric volumes and pH. So, with respect to the volumes, generally it has been found that the H2 receptor blockers have been better than PPIs. I will not go into the details. And with respect to the pH, generally the proton pump inhibitors showed higher pH as compared to the H2 receptor blocker. And we can always have combinations, but the evidences have been low to very low in terms of prokinetics and anticholinergics. So our recommendation is routine use is not advised prior to administration of anesthesia. It can be administered only in high-risk patients as identified with anesthesiologists. But what if we allow the patient to fast for longer time? This is a possibility in many of the hospitals, especially government setups, where there is a large list. So they'll be fasting for more than 8, 10, and even 12 hours without any hydration. So this is not good for the patient, physiologically speaking also. There is glycogenesis caused by low insulin, high glycogen, surgical stress-induced insulin resistance, so increased catabolism. So definitely it's a stress on the patient. So we should be administering some sort of preoperative hydration also for these patients and strictly implement the guidelines as advised. And maltodextrin has been advised in the preoperative period. I will not go into the details because the evidences have been more in the field of EROS protocols where the outcomes are different. But the outcomes we talk about are basically in terms of the gastric volumes and the pH. How fast we can restore the postoperative feeding? There are multiple factors which can influence them. There are evidences and in the form of meta-analysis which are specific to colorectal surgeries and lower abdominal surgeries. So we were not able to find any specific evidences which can help us in framing the guidelines. Definitely, it's left to the individual anesthesiologists. Obesity, are there any changes? Definitely, there are a higher risk of aspiration, but the level of recommendation is weak. But one thing is, generally the pre-op advice is similar, and aspiration prophylaxis may be administered prior to the administration of anesthesia or sedation to the patient. Obstetric section, we are very clear, very strong in our recommendation and in our statement that women in early or late pregnancy may be considered high risk of aspiration, but rest of the guidelines are similar. Heavy meal consumption is not advised on the night before surgery, but aspiration prophylaxis must be administered. It's a strong recommendation for these patients. Pediatric section, 2 important considerations. We can allow water up to 3 ml per kg 1 hour prior to administration of anesthesia, and clear liquids 3 ml per kg up to 2 hours prior to administration of anesthesia. This is very important. And most important is we should not delay resumption of the intake in the post-operative period. Early resumption of the clear liquid intake is very important. So generally, when we compare with the ASA guidelines, we have definitely picked up some more evidences in the interregnum. Heavy meals, we have slightly modified the definition. We have separately dealt with the obstetric section, and in pediatric area, we have talked about 1 hour fasting for water and clear liquids in those patients. So thank you very much for the patient hearing. This is the summary, the 15 minutes that is allotted to us. Thank you very much.